Just to let you know, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit chronologically with these magazines. I have quite a few in the queue, and without any certain rhyme or reason, I'm just, grabbing them, quite honestly, just at random. So you're going to find these months are a little bit out of order chronologically. So, just try to deal with it as much as you can. Today we have the March 2020 issue of Harper's Bazaar. Okay, so I'm not even going to tell you who's on the cover. I despise her so much because she has the nerve to refer to herself as self-made, and she's anything but self-made. So again, I don't even want to mention her name. Okay, let's get started with the images here. Okay, here we have the newsstand cover, the subscriber cover, and the newsstand cover. I'm trying to control this glare as much as possible, so please work with me on the glare. Okay, here we have Fendi. Now we've seen this before, and it's actually quite beautifully done. You can tell, well, I don't know if you can tell, maybe pick it up in camera, but I think this is clearly a medium format sensor, possibly a phase 1, because this is just so ultra clean. I would have difficulty believing this is a full frame. Okay, we have departed full frame. We're now this. Again, the image is so clear. It breathes, and again, I'm not talking about IQ, a strict IQ. IQ really comes from glass, right? A really high-end lens gives IQ, but I'm talking about the sense of an image breathing comes from the size of the sensor. So here, this image is just full of, right, this space, this sense of space, and that comes from a large sensor. So again, we're medium format. Here, we've talked about this model before, and she's modeled pretty much exclusively for Michael Kors. Now she's branched out. I finally remembered her name, and this is the one I was critical of in the past. It's Rianne Van Rompuy, and she isn't represented by Paparazzi Model Management out of Amsterdam. At least it looks like Rianne Van Rompuy. And as I've said before, nobody has really tapped into her capability as a model. And it's the same here with Fendi. Fendi, they don't have her made up properly. So it's just a shame that this model has so much potential and nobody has learned how to tap into it. It's really quite disgraceful. Here we've seen this before. This swing, right? Look at that design, how clean, right? Instead of Fendi being in the middle and obscuring the image, Fendi has pulled it down into the corner. The opacity is still 100%, but that's okay because it's not obscuring the image. So, I mean, it's just wonderful, wonderful set design, wonderful page design. Fendi's, as I've said before, Fendi is definitely in the top 5 advertisers. Giorgio Armani, Fendi, Ralph Lauren, Prada was in the top 5 before, but they've fallen. So there are a few. Here's another one. Here's Rianne Van Rompuy again. It's just I don't know. It's actually quite troubling that nobody knows how to prepare her for a shoot, and I mean nobody. Unbelievable. Okay, here's another. See, there's another inset. So I don't know which is the subscriber cover. I think the other one was, because this is a different model. Here we have again. It seems like Tim Burton. These themes of Tim Burton resurrect themselves every now and then, especially in W. It's very apparent in W magazine. Every issue, it seems like there's a hint of Tim Burton running through W magazine. Not so much all the other magazines, but specifically W. But here, the way this is, this giant petticoat underneath here, right, and this dead tree, right, we're really conjuring Tim Burton here. So it's kind of neat in a way that we feel Tim Burton's presence in that image. Okay, we've seen this before. I really don't want to cover this one, right? Waste time. This is just atrocious. Now, we haven't seen this one before. Another Gucci ad. Okay, let me get this glare off of here. Man, it's really hard to control this glare. Okay, it's just stupid. I mean, where is Gucci taking this, really, honestly? Absolute insanity. Gucci continues to melt down. This is a cool photo here. Okay, let me do the left page first. Let me try to control this glare, which is not happening. I'm not able to control this glare, hardly at all. But anyway, I think there I have to tilt it. But it's a wonderful image. Very well done. Saint Laurent, as I've said before, they fired their team, their previous team, and their advertisements have improved substantially since they fired their former team. Okay, Kate Moss. Nice image. Nice image of Kate Moss. And here's where I really have to give them credit here. I don't know if you can pick this up. There's a blemish here in the wall. And I give this team a lot of credit for leaving that blemish in the wall. Because what I would have done, and it would have been wrong of me, so let me state that clearly. I would have used a content-aware healing tool, and I would have healed this blemish, this crack in the plaster or whatever. This is wallboard, gypsum wallboard or whatever it is. I would have healed that with a content-aware healing tool, and that would have been a mistake. So this post-processor actually did the right thing, because it leaves some humanity in the image, right? Life is not perfect, and this blemish reminds us that life is not perfect. So this is what I was talking about. So see, look how Saint Laurent's images have improved, right? Much better. And this is the model that has been modeling for Saint Laurent for the last few years. Now you can see she was exclusive. I think she was exclusive to Saint Laurent. She's not modeling for them anymore. She's modeling for Prada. So as I've said before, Saint Laurent kicked this team to the curb, and Prada and Michael Kors have now picked her up. And I think that was a dreadful mistake. These images aren't doing anything for me. So Prada has hired Saint Laurent's cast-offs. Image on the left is quite horrible. Image on the right is actually cool. Now, again, I love these associations. So if you'll take a minute to study this photo, I mean, it's a giveaway. There's a famous movie, right? Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. And this would obviously be the kind of the Tippi Hedren character. Right, beautiful. It's really, if that doesn't conjure the birds, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, I don't know what does. Okay, Zendaya. The problem with this image is she's wearing way too much. Okay, many bangles here, bracelets, many rings, many necklaces. It just looks stupid. So they've done her no justice by putting all this jewelry on her. It looks insane. It looks trashy. Instead of elegant, it has the opposite effect. Look at this. Now, if you saw, sometimes you actually encounter people like this. And what's the first thing you think when you see somebody like this, right? I mean, their credibility goes to zero. If you encounter somebody like this wearing this much jewelry, right, you see this when you go out in public and you see people with rings on every finger and all that. Their credibility is zero. You can't take that person seriously. No matter what they say, it comes out of their mouth. It's instantly dismissed because of this. So what I'm saying is, here, this is high-end jewelry. This is very high-end. So what message are they sending? Right? Your credibility. You are wearing tens of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry, and you have no credibility. So if that's not a mixed message, I don't know what is. This is cool. Miu Miu always labels their shoots here. They let us know where and so forth, right? So here it is. It's actually taken at Casa Corbero. And if you want to search the internet, search that. It's really quite a lovely residence. Casa Corbero. It's in Barcelona, Spain. This shoot took place November 18 through 20 of last year. And the theme is called, by Call This Number, Liz Collins. So that's what I love about Miu Miu. They give all the metadata of their shoots and their themes. And it's really cool that they furnish this metadata. Okay, this is cool. Dolce & Gabbana, right? really spring and summer. Now this is March, it kicks off spring and summer. So this is not a winter themed clothing at all, right? This is very summerish, spring and summer. Getting back to this khaki though, this British khakis make it come back. As I've said before, Melania Trump took a whipping in the press. November, excuse me, I think it was either October or November of 2018. She went to Kenya and she wore kind of this. She wore a traditional safari outfit with the pith helmet, and she was just trashed in the media for being tone deaf and wearing colonial type of clothing. And here, a year and a half later, the exact clothing she wore on that on that trip to Kenya, it's all the rage now. It's 100% in style. But a year and a half ago, she was just lambasted in the media for wearing that. Okay, it's funny how the press can do that. Just tear somebody to pieces, and then a year and a half later, everybody's wearing it. Okay, this is cool. These models actually look like Guess, right? These look more like Guess models. Really top-notch models. Very cool. Very cool image. Very well executed. We've seen this before. Giorgio Armani kind of looks like Solveig Sundsbo with the material. Okay, this one really caught my attention on the left, because that's a very hard image to get. So let's study this for a second. It's at sunset, right? It looks to be what would be sunset. Okay. They're on a boat, so you have motion. To me, I've studied this, and it seems like that the shutter used here is about 1/4 of a second because of the motion of the water. It looks somewhere about maybe somewhere an eighth, 1/4, or a half second, depending on how rough these waves were. Somewhere in there. So we got either an eighth, 1/4, or a half second. Now, so my point is, this photographer, I'm pretty sure this photographer had to go out the evening before, and instead of using the actual model, because a model is very expensive, so they use a stand-in, right? A stand-in is like a local model they can find on Model Mayhem. So my guess is the evening before they shot this photographer chartered a boat and went out and had to do this, right? Practice this repeatedly. Probably had 2 assistants, one assistant adjusting power on the strobe, and he had another assistant with a journal, and he had the person with the journal capturing all the information. What was the shutter? What was the ISO? What power was the strobe? So they had to practice this and do this many times to try to get this close. Now, the next evening, right, my point is, the evening before, they try to nail shutter and ISO, aperture. They try to get all that down. The next evening, they actually go out with the real model and they photograph this, okay? So this took a lot of preparation. Now, here's my other point. This they really couldn't prepare for because it's fireworks, okay? So it's not like whatever town or whatever city put on these fireworks. They're not going to put on a practice fireworks for the photographer. And you can see here, this photographer really missed, okay? This is all blurry. He wasn't using the right shutter. But I can't really blame him because it's clear. So what my point is this photographer was inexperienced at both these shots. This one, the photographer was able to go out the evening before and practice it, okay? And again, part of the journal process is to record the time, shutter, aperture, ISO, strobe settings, everything. Here, he didn't have the opportunity to do that. He had to wing it on the fly, and he missed. So, right, without the opportunity to practice the evening before, this was his first time. He tried to capture it live, and he failed. He couldn't do it. And again, I'm not faulting him, because this would be difficult, especially now there's a strobe. Not only is he trying to capture the fireworks, throw in a model and the use of a strobe. All these variables are working together, and it's very difficult, and he missed it. So again, I am not finding any fault at all with this photographer, because this would be a very difficult image. But my point is in this is that they should have just scrapped the image. Don't send it to print. The photographer could have said, hey, look, I tried. We missed it. We didn't get the image. Just don't run it. And that's what it should. This should have ended up on the proverbial cutting room floor, right? Again, all photographers have a discard rate. You know, you have a keep rate. You keep so many and you discard so many. This should have been among the discards, but they made a very serious mistake by sending this to print, and it was in no way ready to go to print. Okay, I'm approaching 15. I think I'm going to take this to 20. Okay, we've seen this before. Kendall Jenner kind of has this spider type look to it. Pretty cool, but again, this Burberry, 100% opacity, right in the middle of the doggone image. Come on, Burberry. But like Fendi did. You remember Fendi was very, right, discreet. They didn't ruin the image. Burberry, take this watermark, pull it down to one of the corners, and just reduce the opacity or whatever. You don't leave a watermark like this right in the middle of an image. Okay, we've seen this before. J-Lo, this is the same pattern she wore at the 2000 Grammys, but this is kind of a one-piece jumper, and before she wore a gown. But it's the same, right? Very exposed chest. So that's the same, but what we have here is a jumper instead of a gown. Okay, we've seen this before. I don't want to cover it. This is really cool. The reason I love this. Now this is Guess, and as I've said before, Guess uses the best models in the industry. The most attractive, the most, the best figures. But here, they're deviating a little bit, because these models are just, and this works. You can tell by looking at her. Right, these models are not size 0. We're getting back to where now Guess has deviated just this month, and they're hearkening back to a 1950s idealized form where women had a little bit of meat on them, right? So this would be a 1950s type of photo shoot. Again, we talked about Jane Mansfield, Marilyn Monroe, Sophia Loren were very healthy women. Okay, very voluptuous, very curvy. So we have here Guess is going back to a 1950s idealized female form, and it's wonderful. So instead of these little emaciated models with these eating disorders, you have real, honest to goodness, curvy women who are just drop dead gorgeous. It's wonderful advertising. Okay, this one, we've seen this one before, again with the colonialism, right? We already talked about this, the return of the British military uniform. But this one, the reason I'm showing it again is there's been a mistake either in print or they went in post and tweaked this for some reason. And this tint, you can see this tint, they pulled it pink. So this is what it's supposed to look like. This uniform is supposed to look like these, like a British khaki or some type of a tan. And what they've done is they've introduced all this pink on this left side of the image. And for some reason, I don't know if it was done in post-production on purpose or if it's just something went sideways in the print process, but it's horrible. Look at the difference here in this pink as compared to these. And again, they also pulled, this is Gigi Hadid. She almost looks like Raggedy Ann. She's got these circular, right, the rouge or the blush. And it's so obvious that it's almost Raggedy Ann-like, which is quite terrible. So there has been some post done on these. The saturation this is much more saturated than the ads running in other magazines. So for some reason, they treated this image differently. Cool images. Both of these look pretty good. Alexander McQueen. So this is really cool. The reason I love this image on the left, it reminds me, so this is a very heavy Jewish influence here, right? We have blue and white, which is the color of the flags of the state of Israel, blue and white. And this is very much a take on the Jewish prayer shawl, right? If you've ever seen Fiddler on the Roof, Tevye, remember the lead Tevye? He's wearing the Jewish prayer shawl throughout the musical, okay? And again, you can tell this is very, very heavily a Jewish influence in here for Alexander McQueen. And it's beautiful. This is absolutely lovely. It's a woman's attire, but look at that. That's a very heavy Jewish influence, again, with the prayer shawl. Just absolutely gorgeous. So last month, you remember last month, Alec, this was a train wreck. But here, look at the clothing, what they're showing here now. It's much better. Even much more. Now, it's kind of a split light here. Okay, we have, right, the light is coming from camera right, striking the model on this side of her face. The other side of her body is falling into shadow, so there's no strobe camera left. It's one key. The key is coming from camera right. And I've got mixed feelings on it, but at least it works. It's a split, but it's working. Okay? Horrible. We've seen this before. This is trash. It has no place in this magazine. So let's try to end on a positive note. Okay, so this is cool. It almost looks angelic, right? It almost has this kind of like angel's wings, right? You can kind of pick up this angelic influence here, which is really quite cool. But we're getting into this blur, okay? So we talked about this. Do you remember this Hard Hands 2013 to 2017? That's all we saw. 2018 was all strobeless photography from January 2019 until now. So we're about 16 months into this blur. This started in January of 19, and it's still with us. Do you see how blurry these images are? You see here, it's a slow shutter. They're telling the model to move a little bit in conjunction with a very slow shutter. It's right. The image is blurred. So here's what's strange. Okay, this is all Alberto Ferretti. There's no blur in this image, but they chose to blur this one, and this one. They're all blurry. So why would you blur? And this is a completely different advertiser. We're getting back to the blur. So I'm just waiting. This is a dreadful trend, and like I said, we're 16 months into this, and I'm just waiting for this to die because it's so dreadful. It's a fad, and it's just like all fads. It's going to end. But the question is when? When is this nonsense going to end? Okay, so let's cut it here. I'm at 21. I went longer than what I expected to go. This is part 1. If you enjoyed this, I would sincerely appreciate a thumbs up. And I'll see you later for part 2. Thank you.